Most companies buy advertising to drive sales of their products, but Andrew Curtin's first sponsor mostly bought out of pity. It was May 2022, and he had just launched Construction Wave, a B2B outlet that covers the UK's construction industry. He had absolutely no audience, but a major crane manufacturing company bought a $10,000 sponsorship anyway. That $10,000 allowed him to hire his first editor, and over the next 2 years, they built Construction Wave up into one of the leading publications in its sector. Its website is mainly monetized through high-priced sponsorships, and this year it hosted its first conference geared toward construction CFOs. In an interview, Andrew explained how he got interested in the sector, where he found his initial readers, and why he thinks there's an opportunity to launch a subscription data product for his industry. Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. If you want to listen to an audio version of this show, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. By the way, have you ever wondered how I monetize this show? It's entirely reliant on subscriptions to my Substack newsletter. When you subscribe, you're able to book a half-hour introductory phone call with me. You also receive subscriber-only interviews with some of the world's most successful media entrepreneurs. Support the work I do here by subscribing at simonowens.substack.com. That's simonowens.substack.com. Or just Google the words Simon Owens and newsletter. And finally, if you're on the lookout for interviews with the world's most successful media entrepreneurs about how they built their businesses, then this is the show for you. So take a few moments to hit the subscribe button down below. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me on. I've been listening for the last few years, so delighted to be a part.
So you currently run a B2B media company that caters to the construction industry, but you didn't grow up working in construction, right? Like you initially started your career in advertising and marketing.
Yeah. My professional career, I guess, coming out of university, advertising. But I spent 6 summers with the tool belt on. So my dad was a small local contractor in the southeast of Ireland. So done a couple of summers there just with the tool belt on, and I done a couple of summers in Chicago with working in framing and stuff. I lived in Chicago again and worked in advertising a few years later, but yeah, we can chat about that later if we want.
Yes. Oh, okay. So I didn't realize that. So you do have like a background knowledge of, at least basically of construction, because it sounds like you worked with your dad in his contracting business then.
Yeah, essentially. Dad just threw me in with the toughest guy, toughest joiner, and just said learn your trade. But yeah, it was a small local business, so just helping out here and there. And yeah, I guess there's a big correlation between the Irish and construction. As you know, in America, we like to say we're the hands that built America. That's what the old Irish guys in the pub like to think, and it's the same here in the UK. So it's kind of in our veins a small bit, you know.
Yeah, now that you say that, I have a relative who owned a construction business in Boston, and I was visiting him, and every single guy on his crew was Irish. I completely forgot about that. I didn't draw the correlation.
Yeah, if you go through London, all the contractors are Irish.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
But so you decided to go, after university, to go into marketing. What did you? Was it at like a marketing agency? Were you working in-house somewhere? What were you doing?
So my first job, when I finished my master's in marketing, I went and done a graduate program with a butter company called Kerrygold. You might have see their butter in Whole Foods, and I think it's in Walmart and Mariano's in Chicago and stuff like that. So was based in Evanston, just north of Chicago, and yeah, spent a year in-house working there, which is a great, working holiday, first time in the States, just out of university, and done a year there, and got a job with an ad agency in London, and worked there. And to be honest, maybe 6 to 9 months into that job, I had so many contractors. I play Irish sports over here, hurling, if any of your listeners ever heard of hurling. So play sports over here, all the contractors are kind of tied to that sport, and yeah, it's just a big community here. And I eventually started just doing freelance marketing consultancy for the contractors,
just like their personal business websites and stuff like that.
Yeah, honestly, like $2,000 websites and just like maybe some PowerPoint presentations. It was the basic of the basic. But it paid. I got paid. Paid the rent, and I could go out for a few drinks at the weekends when early 20s. So it was good fun, and it kind of set me up for what we're doing now.
So you start doing these kind of side gigs. Did you turn that into like a full-time thing where you were doing content marketing consultant for like contractors or construction companies or anything like that?
Yeah, that was exactly it. I was doing long hours. Like ad agency is, you might know, it's tough business. It's like long hours, low margin. It sounds sexier than what it is. And then the contractors came along, and I was probably making £3,500-4,000, whatever, $5,000 per month, and I was like, okay, I can live on my own terms here. It's freelance. It's not exactly on my own, but I can do it freelance, and I can live a life, and that's how it started.
And you quit your ad agency job to do that full time.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get out of there in the end. It was a tough. Whatever, how long it was, but I always wanted to do my own thing, and looking back, it was actually great training because it's just a high-paced environment. You could, like, from a content perspective, you could see what worked, what didn't work. We worked on some cool stuff like at the NBA Europe, so it was like looking at content every single Monday and Tuesday, doing the analytics. So it definitely, looking back, it was a great learning curve.
And like, what kind of content were these companies getting you to do? Like, were you writing blog posts, articles, videos? Like, what were you doing?
All the above. I think it started off with like tender presentations. This is, yeah. I hope your listeners have some coffee for this part. But yeah, basically in contracting to tender for a project, you have to have a presentation about your company's history and case studies, and times were starting to change in construction where new buyers required a bit more design and just a bit more information, a bit more quality. So I started doing these presentations just like case studies and putting them together so it would help with their tendering. And then went into website development. Just like these contractors, they had no website, so like they thought I was a genius coming in and doing a 5-page website. So I used to like charge like £2,500 per website. And yeah, that was kind of the start of it. No ads or anything like that, but yeah, you do basic content. We eventually got into videoing, and that was kind of it then.
And so you're doing this freelance for several years. Were these mainly just companies that were in the UK that you were working for?
Yeah, all the UK.
Yeah. And so how many years did you do that as like a freelance content marketing consultant?
end of 2018, right up till maybe end of Q1 2022.
So would it be safe to say that you made a lot of contacts with the industry, and also by creating content for them, that was probably, obviously you had this background working with your dad, but like it really gave you a holistic view of the business of construction and all the different, intricacies of it and stuff like that?
Yeah, I really got to know, I suppose, the back office of construction when doing that. I can tell you one thing: the back office isn't that much easier than working on site. That's for sure. It's a tough industry, but yeah, I kind of look at it where I got into the pool. I got in there, kind of rub shoulders with probably companies and executives that I probably wouldn't get a chance to. Doing something else, so it was just an extra couple of years building up the network, and yeah, learned a lot. But I would say I got first-hand experience of how the back office of construction works.
So what motivated you to think like, okay, I'm creating all this content for these companies, I want to start creating content for myself that I own and can kind of scale? Like, so how did you, basically I'm asking you, how did you get the initial idea for Construction Wave?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a media geek. I love the media business, like yourself, Simon. I think it's a fantastic industry, and I was always, I've read your stuff for the last few years and listened to your podcasts. Like Axios, Industry Dive, always reading, very interested in like in American business as well, and American publications before I even got to London. And then the UK have such a really good, strong, robust B2B media business over here, so I was just able to pick it up when I got here. But I guess towards the end, to answer your question, at the end of the freelancing business, one of the guys at a large developer in the city here just said, "Listen, Andrew, you're not going to become a millionaire with like freelance consulting with us. There is an appetite and a need in this industry to have a new media property. Would you consider doing something like that?" And I just looked at the competitive landscape. A lot of the companies are quite aging management team and maybe didn't move to print that well. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. That guy supported me a lot as well, getting my first few clients and just getting it off the ground. But there just felt like there was a need to change and clean the clock.
And so when did you launch Construction Wave?
I love the word launch, but the website went live. I think it was like around the 1st of June 2022. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, Simon, to be honest, but I said, right, let's get it out there. Let's get it out there. And it started off like with a 1 day of news for the summer, and a thrown together newsletter. But that was like, the summer was just more or less figuring out, okay, how this works. And I was like, I didn't even have a limited company or LLC set up at this time, and then coming into September, I cold called Lieber, who are a big, like, world's biggest crane manufacturing company, and I was like, guys, this is what I'm doing. I'm being honest with you. This isn't going to light the world on fire. We have some ad inventory where we're doing we'd have partnered with a podcaster and stuff like that. They gave us 10 grand up front. I just think they felt sorry for me. But it got me paid for the first few months. I remember scrambling to get a limited company and a bank account set up so they could pay us. They were fun times and still are.
So like when you first started publishing, it was just you, I think, to start out with. And so what kind of content were you producing?
I think the basic stuff in construction is your project wins. So, you see your 2 billion pound whatever dollar data centers and stuff like that, just some of the headlines, rewriting them and stuff like that. Very, very, very basic. Project wins is kind of like the most basic thing you can do in construction,
like contracts being signed for construction projects and stuff like that.
Yeah, the ones you see, whatever, 2 billion pound on the Soldier Field Stadium or something like that. So those type of contract wins. I was always interested. I felt the industry needed a bit more personnel or a bit more human touch, so I like to do deep dives and features. But there's only so much you can do when you're one person. But I got a few of those out. But it was mainly, Simon, a roundup of the contract wins of the week and stuff like that. And
then you initially had trouble building an audience, right? Would you say in those early months?
Oh, I think until like June to December, we might have had 100 newsletter subscribers or something like that. I think a lot of people, Simon, who look at this industry, just they look at the hustle, they look at Morning Brew, and they think they're going to skyrocket straight away. But like when you're in such a niche industry, it takes time for word to spread, because in construction they don't use Facebook, they don't use Instagram, they don't use Twitter. They look at LinkedIn and they look at their email. So you don't have a whole lot of options.
Yeah, so you had a pretty great strategy for growth, and I'm seeing more and more BD operators do this, where relying on more kind of analog connections. You started going to construction conferences and trade shows, right?
Yeah, I think we discussed it maybe before, but I remember going to a trade show. I won't mention the name, but it's one of the main construction trade shows in the UK, and I went in there. I didn't have an iPad at the time, so I rented an iPad like for $50 for the day, and went around the trade show hall trying to get people to sign up to my newsletter. I eventually got kicked out at the end of the day, and had to got one of these firm legal emails in the evening, and I just said, okay, they made me delete all the subscribers. Like, okay, I'll delete them, if you don't bring me to court. But yeah, we actually get on well with that events company now. It's amazing how forgiving people can be, but try anything to get going. And I think that's what it is at the start. It's like hand-to-hand combat, just full contact sport, because nobody's going to come to your site and sign up.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you're working in a niche B2B industry, those kinds of like face-to-face things, like even getting, a handful of signups, that's just really powerful if they're like executives at whatever, in whatever industry you're in. So I think that's a great strategy for someone starting out, especially in B2B. It's just like start going to conferences, like get an official badge, set up networking meetings, and then if you could even say, hey, do you want to sign up and sign them up right there, or just like get to know them, put a face behind it. I think that's a really great strategy. So you're struggling to build an audience. You're doing the hand-to-hand combat. I think at some point you hired a reporter. Maybe you raised a little money. What was kind of the evolution to a kind of more formal kind of news organization?
Yeah. We end up didn't raise. We just bootstrapped the whole thing, to be honest. So still open to do a small round of funding, but not massive. But we got a bit of cash flow from the Liber sale. There was just a few months because I wasn't taking a salary really, and we hired who is now our editor, Rory, who was a former BBC journalist and worked at a fairly good UK publication called The Manufacturer, which it says in the name, it covers the business of manufacturing. So Rory came in and really took some leadership as well and helped put a framework in place.
Yeah, and so what happened? What happened at that point? Like once you had him in place, did you find that it was easier to grow the audience and the content and stuff like that?
Well, straight away we went from 1 to 3 days, and within a month we were 1 to 5 days. So Rory really scaled the amount of output, and yeah, it just opened. It opened my mind up, because I'm not a journalist. I like writing and love copywriting, but I'm not a journalist. So I was just getting out there, just selling what I could. Just seeing what we could do. And like, being honest, Simon, for the first year we made no money. Like, I don't know how we even survived, but like we just just the odd webinar here and there, and just something just to keep us going every few months. And I think most media companies who are bootstrapping don't make any money for the first couple of years. But coming into this year, it's been quite strong. We launched an event earlier this year, really helped accelerate things.
So you've got an actual journalist. He's actually probably doing original reporting, maybe even breaking some news. Who did the core readership end up being? I'm guessing it's not like the on the ground construction workers. It's probably the higher level executives, the people who work in the offices. I'm guessing that's kind of the readership of the publication. Yeah,
our readership is project manager and above. So if you were the project manager director on site, right up to the CEO, and the main readership is the CEO, project directors, and you need people who have an influence on the site, because it's the billing sites that buy the technology and kind of the back office and stuff like that. So like, it's mainly your project manager, director team, commercial team, all those type of job titles.
Yeah, so you said that you started selling, and I think what you were selling were like sponsored webinars. What were the companies that wanted to sponsor these webinars? Like, they're ones who like basically sell stuff to construction companies?
Yeah, it's like a lot of your guests, Simon, I suppose, in the B2B space, the tech companies, the early emerging tech companies, try to get some lead gen, some thought leadership. We also like to, early on, you cannot offering huge audience. So like, we always try to like have a good panel of speakers so the sponsor can network with some of the other speakers on the webinar. So I think early on, that's where the value was, because We weren't getting that many registrants, maybe 25 to 40, but that being said, they were good quality registrants. But just trying to put an event together, so they get some value on it.
And so, like the customer or the sponsors, they're the ones who are like have sales teams with long lead times. So I'm guessing that like those 45 people who signed up, those were like leads that you would hand over to the sponsor so that their sales team can kind of nurture those relationships and, you know, eventually land a big like contract with the construction company 6 to 12 months down the road or something like that.
Yeah, we looked at it in short term because a lot of companies who are buying a webinar with people like us is like, we're just testing you at the start to see, are we going to get anything out of it? So I always said that the registrants was more long term, and like, you know, we'd try and make sure that they're nurturing these properly, or else they'll just come back and say they sucked. Some of these companies need a bit of hand holding, and then in the short term, I would call up some of the guest panelists individually and say, hey, we have a sponsor for this, we're trying to get off the ground, would you mind having a conversation with our sponsor after the webinar is completed? And most people are absolutely fine with that.
Yeah. And so you were, because these were, you know, leads for very high priced products in a lot of cases, you were able to charge a relatively high price for these webinar sponsorships, like even very early on when it was only like 45 people or something.
Yeah, like you could charge in anything between 7 to 15. 15 was a bit top shelf, but they were still, for what we were doing, like, it was great money. So it's still, to be honest, it's still around that price point. I don't think at the moment there's a huge appetite to be paying massive amounts of ad budgets on webinars, but we can still price it accordingly.
Mm-hmm. And so what other things did you start, like revenue lines did you start to develop? Like, did you start selling advertising in the newsletter or on the website or anything like that? Or was it mainly focused on the webinars? Yeah.
New webinars mainly at the start, and then newsletter really coming into this year strong with the newsletter. Again, there's a lot of lead gen stuff. And, you know, the big pillar for us this year, Simon, was we launched our Construction CFO Summit.
Mm-hmm. And so what was that? So CFO, so that's, you know, Chief Financial Officer. So it's a event specifically for CFOs at construction companies.
Correct. So last year, there's a global construction issue at the moment from the war and COVID backlog. There's been a lot of companies going to administration. And we looked at last year, we kind of chatted to our journalists qualitatively and then looked at some of our website analytics and like, okay, everyone's reading the finance part of our news, you know, everyone's interested in the insolvencies. Construction's worth 11% to the UK economy, and there was no gathering for financial leaders across the industry. And we just, like, it's too big of a market not to discuss money. So I literally bet the business on this event. Cash flow was really tight around this time last year, last summer. I think I had $2,000 left in the business account, and our venue was $50,000 with everything included. And I said to the venue, I was like, listen, just give me a chance to pay it. And they created, and my hat goes off to them. They created an installment plan, and we got it paid and made a 7% profit for year one.
Nice. And so where was the summit held?
It was held in a venue called Northumberland Avenue, off Trafalgar Square, in central London. So it's not far away from Westminster and all those kind of famous landmarks. And we could have gone a bit cheaper and maybe rented out like a kind of cinema similar to like what the HustleCon done a few years, to do those type of stuff. But we just said, right, construction CFOs and financial directors, they don't get out of the office at all. So we have to make an impression on these guys, because this was probably the only day in the year where they're going to get outside their office and like network. So we done it right. We rented a kick-ass venue, and it really helped us elevate the event, and people loved it.
And was it like a one-day event?
Yeah, one day event, and it was definitely the most stressful time of my life. I can tell you, getting a new event off the ground, having every single pound to my name invested in this whole thing, was, it was so stressful, but we had great sponsors, we had great speakers, and had a good network of people just got around it and loved it.
And you also charge for admission as well?
Yeah, it was on average £250 per ticket.
And how many CFOs came? Or how many people came total? Yeah, I'm guessing it wasn't just CFOs.
180, just around 180 was what we got. Maybe around 40% were FDs and CFOs, and then rest is operational, which is quite a big. The operational team is quite interested in the financial aspect of it as well. But I don't know how we got them out, but I think just the industry needed it, but we got them out. If my time back again, I'd probably go in at a cheaper price point. I think a new event should, test the waters and maybe around that like 99 to 149 mark. But anyways, we got over the line and it was a great day out.
Yeah. So is the plan to turn that into an annual event, or like are you going to start doing other kind of niche events like CEOs in construction, CMOs in construction? Like what's the kind of event strategy that you want to implement?
We're not looking at any more job title events. We are going ahead on the 27th of February next year. CFO, the second one. We've huge momentum going into that. We've all our last year's sponsorship rebooked, and we have some like massive public companies reaching out to us, like companies you realise, Simon, you see every day, and you like, these guys don't work in construction, but in the background they're actually helping. So we'll surpass 150,000 for that event, £150,000 for that event next year, and we should have around just under 300 delegates. And I don't want to turn into an events business. This is going to be like our Q1, event, calendar event. It helps us get our brand out there. It's it's a good income stream, but it helps accelerate the business as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could do like title-based things within, because like I don't know if you listened to my interview with Tim Burrows at Mumbrella, which was like a marketing communications type publication in Australia, and I was amazed. So like he did like niche conferences, like a conference for travel marketers and a conference for retail marketers and stuff like that, and he would just get like 200 people in the room for each one, but he was able to like nicheify it down to like 5 or 6 different conferences, and I feel like you could probably do that for the construction industry. I'm guessing you're not trying to do kind of like a general construction conference, because I'm guessing there's already an existing one, right?
Yeah, and they don't have a great net promoter score, a lot of the general ones. They're not really liked by the industry. The event companies do well out of it, but the attendees don't seem to love it. I think what we'd be interested in, Simon, is we definitely want to focus more from editorially on the financial aspect of the industry. So this CFO franchise that we have, I'd be keen to expand it a bit more. Maybe like in a virtual awards or something like that, or some sort of virtual conference around it, because the finance people in this industry have a hell of a job to do, because this is a 2-3% margin business, and very, very high turnover. So it would be good to we might even put a community on top of this. We might kind of create our own what's the whatever community they have for finance people, but we might do something like that. I'm interested in exploring franchising it out a bit more on the finance side.
Yeah, and if you're going to target any title, the finance side, they're the ones who have the purse strings, so those are the ones that are probably the most lucrative, job title to go after, probably, other than maybe the CEO.
Yeah, they're definitely a good job title to target, and as well, London is a financial services city. It's one of the it's like one of the leading hubs, like New York and stuff is. So there's a lot of interest around construction and real estate here. So I went with my kind of gut and a bit of data, but yeah, it's worked out quite well, and they're a good target audience for a lot of brands.
Yeah. And so what's your content mix look like now? I saw, in addition to Rory, your editor, it looks like you have at least one other maybe reporter working for you. What's kind of like on a weekly basis, what's your content output?
So we just hired Miles, young reporter who done some he's apprenticeshipper with Financial Times. So he's doing very well so far. We'll be hiring another reporter in Q1 next year. So the output is we do between 5 and 8 stories a day. Maybe averaging 6 at the moment, and covering again a lot of contract wins. Miles has taken that a bit more. Rory is starting to go more into I suppose it's a strategic side of the industry, doing deep dives, company breakdowns, looking at the M&A side a bit more. So we would say our bread and butter, Simon, is executive moves, contract wins, those big contract wins. Now we're starting to create our own USP on just deep dives on companies, because a lot of these companies are quietly making billions of pounds per year, but we don't know much about them. So looking at more the human aspect of it. We also like to champion the industry. It's quite a secretive industry, but there's some amazing founders in this industry that started with absolutely nothing and have built up incredible sized companies. So I guess you're a former journalist, Simon, but I suppose they call it community reporting in the journalism world, is kind of that more social human bit.
I'd like to think I'm still a journalist, but yeah.
Sorry, Simon. Yeah, you know what I mean.
So is it now that you feel like you have a real brand for the publication, are you getting scoops and people coming to you first and stuff like that to actually publish original news that hasn't been published anywhere else?
Yeah, we're definitely becoming more of a go-to place. We're not getting all the scoops. We do have some good competitors in the market, and my hats go off to them. They do get some good scoops, but definitely it's becoming a lot easier to pick up the phone, and the PR teams have heard of us. A lot of the industry has heard of us. So getting more scoops, we're just getting a lot more engagement. I always ask the journalists how busy is your inbox, and I'm always interested to see how busy their inbox, and it's hectic in there at the moment, which is a good sign. But a lot of people reaching out to me as well, just personally, just trying to get featured and stuff like that. But and the CFO side is really starting to kick through. As CFOs, when they're doing their annual accounts, they tend to come to us first. So that's good.
So are you mainly only producing written content? Are you doing anything like podcasts or video or anything like that at the moment? It's all written for now. I don't see us changing much, to be honest, Simon. We done a podcast at the start, which I mentioned earlier, Lieber, sponsored, with a notable figure in the industry. We done 2 series, but I think podcasts are tough. They're a tough business. Yourself, you're in the podcast game. You've done an amazing job, but I think sometimes for niche industry, especially construction, my wash up was that it's such a busy industry. You're not going to really listen to podcasts when you get back in the evening. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just think it's a tough industry for podcasts. I'm open to looking at it again. It might be just a journalism focused podcast for awareness, but we tried it and it worked okay. I'll think about doing it again, however. And have you waded into paid subscriptions or any other kind of digital paid products or anything like that, information products? I feel like you could create a database that's just tracking a deals database or something like that, and charge for access to that, since your reporters are already collecting that information anyway.
Yeah, we could. One thing I think about is, I think the future 5 years down the line, there's no reason why we couldn't be like CB Insights, but for construction only, because we're going to get to data first. We have a competitive advantage, massive network, and I think this industry is going through a technological transformation. There's new companies emerging. AI is really affecting this industry. There's a labour problem. No young kids in the UK, in America, or in Ireland, where I come from, they don't want to work on the ground in construction anymore. So technology is starting to take a lot of those positions. So there's a lot to discuss, and there's a lot of deal making in the tech space that I'm interested in construction that I don't think gets covered too well. So that's something I'm looking at, is kind of more that DCB Insights database for construction technology.
And CB Insights, that's like a survey data company, right?
Yeah.
They do healthcare data or something like that?
They do healthcare, they do all types of the tech buying information. So if you're you work at whatever Turner, who is the big contractor in the States, and you want to buy new a new HR software. Well, if the procurement department get that wrong, it could cost millions. So you go to CB Insights, get some reviews, get some surveys with people who've used this to make sure it's a good fit for your company. So that's something I would love to explore in the next few years. And yeah, because there is a big tech change in the construction industry. However, it's still old school and they're still slow at adopting technology. So it's something I'm interested in.
So how do you want to expand over the next 5 years? Do you want to just continue to grow Construction Wave, hire more reporters? Do you want to launch other sites that are in like kind of adjacent niches, or do you want to expand regionally, like, beyond the UK? I feel like there's a lot of different ways you could expand. What's kind of your ambition?
Next year we'll open up a new publication in around the refurbishment part of the sector. There's a lot of work going on around refurbing buildings here, turning them into hotels. And yeah, energy is a space I'm looking at. So within the next maybe 5 to 7 years, we'd hope to have 5 publications, all covering different subsectors of the industry. We done a calculation that we have about 500,000 back office workers in UK construction. Probably around 200,000 of those are real value. So we find that there's different subsectors that are like civil engineering, refurbishments. We'd like to start going into those sexy industries. And beyond just the publications, it's the database or community. I'm quite interested in that.
So is it going to be kind of like an industry dive approach of just like taking one model and just kind of copying and pasting it across several different related industries?
Yeah, I would say it's a bit more like aging media, and like a caveat. George, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, George Yednak has come on as an advisor for Construction Wave, so he's really helped us. So we'd like to go. We really want to drill down into the construction industry.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much. That's all the questions I have for you. Where can people find you online?
LinkedIn is where I'm most active. You type in Andrew Curtin, Construction Wave, or Andrew Curtin. It says a media operator somewhere. You will find me, and I'm most active there. So please reach out. I'm a media nerd, love chatting about it, and get in touch with me there.
Awesome. Well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Simon, and well done for everything you've done. You've been a great asset to the media industry.